Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, collision on Capitol Hill.
So, I just think what's most important is we not indulge his delusions and that we bring him back to reality, and I think the impeachment process will do that.
Democrats are moving fast in the impeachment probe while White House aides are pushing back. Plus, the impact of increased security on the San Diego border. A look at what's happened in the 25 years since Operation Gatekeeper went into effect. And from turbulence to triumph, we bring you a story of a local woman inspiring kids around the nation with her fairy tale story. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, October 1st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Priya Sridhar. The inquiry into impeachment is heating up in Washington as Democrats push forward and the president and his aides push back. This current inquiry all depends on how lawmakers interpret a July 25th phone call between President Donald Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart. Nadia Romero explains what we know and what's still to come.
You're being inundated with impeachment inquiry news, tweets, polls, and opinions after a whistleblower complaint was made public regarding President Trump's call with the president of Ukraine, where Trump mentions former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter.
We have in plain letters the president's admission to what I think is sufficient for us to move forward with the impeachment inquiry.
There's nothing there. So I respectfully disagree with my colleagues who think that there needs to be a further inquiry here.
The president's allies taking to the airwaves.
The House wants to spent the last 3 years harassing this president, and I gather we're going to get another chapter of that with the impeachment episode.
But more than 220 House Democrats publicly support the impeachment inquiry. And Monday, House Democratic leaders issued a subpoena to the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, for documents related to his Ukrainian work.
I'll get all my evidence together. I'll get my charts. I don't know if they let me use videotapes and tape recordings.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was also reportedly on that call with the Ukrainian president, tweeting his concerns Monday that House Democrats are attempting to intimidate, bully, and treat improperly people who may have been involved. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
A new CNN poll shows support for impeaching President Trump is up among both Republicans and independents from earlier this year. And overall, about half of the country now supports the move. Meanwhile, the White House is shifting its attention toward North Korea. The State Department confirms working-level talks are planned to resume next week. President Trump has met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. Denuclearization negotiations stalled in June at their last meeting in Japan during the G20 summit. North Korea has put a moratorium on testing long-range missiles, but it's still testing short-range and submarine-launched missiles. It's not known if Trump or Kim will be directly involved in the new round of meetings. Dangerous research done on San Diego veterans is coming to light. Now Congress is questioning why the Veterans Affairs Office did such a poor job investigating what went wrong. iNewsSource has been following the story for months. Reporter Jill Castellano explains the latest.
In 2013, Martina Buck was a liver researcher at the San Diego VA. She became concerned that a colleague wanted to perform medically unnecessary liver biopsies on veterans, putting the patients at risk of internal bleeding and even death. Buck contacted her supervisors, warning them not to approve the study. It was approved anyway. Here's Buck talking about how she felt at the time.
I was hopeful for I guess, 15 minutes. But when I started talking to the people that could have stopped this, and they just kept patting me on the head pretty much and telling me, it's okay, you've convinced us, we're not going to do it that way now.
In 2017, the Department of Veterans Affairs finally investigated Buck's concerns. They sent a team to San Diego from the VA Office of the Medical Inspector. The office is supposed to protect the 9 million patients in the VA healthcare system. The medical inspector concluded the research did not pose a substantial danger to public health, but its final report failed to address many of Buck's concerns. A separate government agency called the report unreasonable. An iNewsSource investigation found that the medical inspector's office has a pattern of conducting poor investigations of the VA healthcare system. In fact, about 16% of the medical inspector's investigations have been labeled unreasonable by a federal watchdog agency called the Office of Special Counsel. That's a higher percentage of unreasonable investigations than in other departments of the government. Nick Schwellenbach used to be the communications director for the Special Counsel. He said our findings show that the Office of the Medical Inspector, or OMI, is not doing enough to protect veterans.
OMI is doing a far worse job in terms of connecting the dots and coming up with reasonable conclusions. That, to me, suggests a bit of a disregard for the whistleblower's concern, even when it confirms the underlying facts.
The VA would not comment on our findings. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano.
iNewsSource is an independent nonprofit partner of KPBS. Today marks the 25th anniversary of Operation Gatekeeper, which increased border security in San Diego County. While border arrests dropped in San Diego County afterwards, thousands have since died in nearby deserts trying to evade the Border Patrol. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us how local immigrant advocacy groups marked the anniversary.
Operation Gatekeeper started as a Clinton administration response to the more than 500,000 border arrests made in San Diego County every year during the early 90s. Vietnam-era landing mats were stacked upright along the border, and places where people could cross the border freely were manned by Border Patrol agents and placed under high-tech surveillance.
The harm since the implementation of Gatekeeper has been tremendous.
Today, immigrant advocacy groups mark the anniversary by highlighting one of the largest impacts of Operation Gatekeeper, the thousands of migrants who still tried to cross into the U.S., but did it through remote parts of the desert.
The legacy of Operation Gatekeeper has been one of death.
Over 8,000 of those migrants, and perhaps many more, have died there since then.
In 2009, Operation Gatekeeper killed one of my favorite people on this planet.
Stephanie Ortiz works with the group Águilas del Desierto, which looks for migrants stranded in the desert. Her own family was touched by tragedy.
My uncle, he was a resident of Oceanside, and he had a challenging documentation status, but he wanted to visit his family in Mexico, his mom, his dad, and on his way back, unfortunately, him and my other uncle didn't make it. It's so common, it's stories of folks not withstanding the terrain anymore. It's not like it used to be a day or two. It's upwards of 10 days sometimes, Nobody brings enough water, food to hike that long.
But this was the point of Operation Gatekeeper, to drive the migrants out to the dangerous territory and make them cross out there.
Jen Budd is a former Border Patrol agent who has become a critic of Operation Gatekeeper. She felt that it redirected the agency away from its original mission.
We're always going to need law enforcement on the border, and there's always going to be a need to rescue people out in the desert and out in the mountains and so forth. But overwhelmingly, we need more of a humanitarian aspect, an asylum aspect.
At the press conference, advocates called for more resources to be given to ports of entry so people can be processed and assisted more quickly at the border. They believe this would eliminate the need for people to cross dangerous terrain like so many have in the past 25 years since the start of Operation Gatekeeper. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Bells are rung 58 times at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, marking the second anniversary of the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. October 1st, 2017, Stephen Paddock shot and killed 58 people in the Las Vegas rampage. Nearly 700 others were injured, including several San Diegans. Authorities say the 64-year-old fired from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino onto a crowd of 22,000 concertgoers. Police believe Paddock then took his own life and that no one else was involved with the shooting. In remembrance of the lives lost, flags are being flown at half-staff at the Nevada State Capitol and all state public buildings and grounds. It's the 16th vaping-related death reported in the United States. Today, New Jersey health officials announced the state's first vaping-related death, bringing the nationwide total to 16. The death was reported to the state health department in August. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced last week that the agency is aware of 805 confirmed and probable cases of lung injury associated with e-cigarette use in 46 states and the U.S. Virgin Islands. A specific cause of the nationwide outbreak of lung injuries remains unknown, but health officials are zeroing in on potential clues, including the prevalence of THC among the cases. This week, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a controversial law that promises to allow collegiate athletes to sign endorsement deals and profit from their likeness. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman talked to San Diego State football players and coaches to see what they think about a law that could drastically change college sports.
It doesn't happen until 2023, so I'm not thinking about it because it'll change dramatically between now and then.
While SDSU football coach Rocky Long didn't have much to say, some of his players thought the idea of making extra money sounded pretty good.
It's hard for a lot of us because we don't have the opportunity to get a job, and so we really can't start earning our savings and things like that and building it up. So I think it's maybe something that is definitely going to benefit student athletes.
Touchdown, Aztecs!
I feel like universities make a lot of money off their players, so I don't understand why it's not okay for us to receive some of that money.
But the NCAA, which regulates collegiate athletics, has issues with the law, and under current rules, it might bar schools from competing. Players say that would need to change.
I think if the circumstances were different as far as that aspect, then it would be a good idea.
A marketing pro sees things a little differently.
What does it mean for college athletes? And I think it's the Wild Wild West. I think it's going to be chaos.
Bernhard Schroeder is director of SDSU's Lavin Entrepreneurship Center and has more than 20 years of marketing experience with Fortune 100 companies. He says businesses would love to sign endorsement deals with college athletes.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, and I don't mean to say this in a negative way, they don't really care about the athletes. They care about moving product.
Schroeder says businesses see students as attractive customers.
They really want the market. I mean, the college market from a discretionary spend point of view is huge.
But he says most college players would probably never see an endorsement.
You're going to see the star athletes kind of get the deals, and everyone else isn't. They might be appearing at events, they might be signing autographs, they might be on billboards, they might be on radio, they might be involved in some regional promotion.
The endorsement law does not go into effect until 2023, and Schroeder believes a lot will change between now and then.
Now the NCAA has to negotiate. There's a deadline, there's a law that's been passed. Now it's game on for negotiation.
The NCAA says they agree changes are needed to support student athletes, but that it has to happen on a national level, not a state level. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Gas prices in San Diego have risen to the highest ever since 2015. Today, the average price for a gallon of self-serve regular gas in San Diego County was almost $4.11. Experts say the rising prices are a result of a diminished supply caused by maintenance issues at refineries in Los Angeles County. The problem is worse because of a lack of imported gasoline. Many area refineries don't have the ingredients they need to make the summer blend of gasoline that Southern California stations are required to sell until October 31st.
If you are a savvy consumer, you can go to one of those independent stations. They're getting the fuel from the same majors, but they're getting it at a discount, so you'll pay 50 cents less, sometimes 50 cents less at a Costco or a World Oil. It pays to shop around. It pays to pay in cash. It does not pay to buy anything less than regular. You shouldn't be buying premium unless your car calls for it. And, so there are things you can do to take a little bit of the burn off.
The average price of gas has risen 13 times over the past 15 days, according to AAA. A federal appeals court ruling on net neutrality regulations has both sides claiming victory. KPBS's Annika Colbert breaks down the case.
The Tuesday ruling upheld the Federal Communication Commission's repeal of Obama-era net neutrality rules. But it also struck down a key provision so that now states can create their own protections. Net neutrality rules prevent broadband companies from blocking or slowing access to the internet as they see fit. Consumer groups, tech companies, and local governmental agencies are strongly in favor of keeping net neutrality rules in place. Advocates say providers should not be allowed to slow down websites, block access to apps, or give faster service to preferred partners. This decision is a victory for the Republican-led FCC, which dismantled the rules to support deregulating mega companies like Verizon and Comcast. It's also a win for the broadband industry, which argued the regulations were too restrictive and it made business uncertain. Net neutrality advocates praise the part of Tuesday's ruling that provides a path for states to create their own net neutrality rules. This probably isn't the last we'll hear on the issue. Mozilla, maker of the Firefox browser and one of the lead plaintiffs in the case, said the fight to preserve the principle of net neutrality is, quote, far from over. Annika Colbert, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the President, the Attorney General, and the Secretary of State are now at the heart of the impeachment inquiry. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego biologists released 7 endangered ridgeway rails in the Tijuana River estuary this morning. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the local birds population is struggling.
1, 2, 3.
The birds flew quickly into the expansive salt marsh. Within a minute or two, all of them were out of view and hidden in the tall grass. The release was particularly sweet for Mike McCoy. He first fought to preserve the estuary nearly 50 years ago.
This particular species was one of the reasons that we were able to protect this estuary by using the Endangered Species Act and critical habitat to protect that particular species.
Ridgeway rails have been having a tough time of late. An El Nino and a large transborder sewage spill conspired to crash the estuary's oxygen levels back in 2016. It didn't help that the mouth of the Tijuana River was also closed by sand. That killed the animals that Ridgeway rails rely on for food.
The population was impacted by the ecological conditions that year. And we went from about 127 pairs out here in Oneonta Slough in 2016 down to, I believe, about 53 or so the next year. These are our call count estimates.
Collins says this is the first time officials have released endangered Ridgeway rails here. He doesn't have reservations, even though the region is seemingly constantly under assault from sewage, trash, and rising sea levels. Collins says a completely safe wild habitat just doesn't exist. A lot of the endangered birds' future depends on this estuary, their ability to both find cover and food here. At the Tijuana River estuary, Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Well, if you're thinking of getting out to the coast, the weather has been perfect lately. Nothing but sunshine and not too hot. Meteorologist Regina Miller tells us if this weather will be sticking around.
Well, it's been cooler here across the Southwest for the early week, but we are going to see a trough in the jet stream shifting eastward. Satellite and radar over the last several hours. We did have some low clouds around the coastline earlier on. Those started to erode. Tonight, we've got a mainly clear sky in the metro areas at 57 degrees. Our skies tonight are going to be clear in Oceanside, 50 degrees there. Borrego Springs, clear skies and 60, and it's going to be clear in Mount Laguna. 44 degrees. On Wednesday, we'll start an offshore flow in the morning, and that is going to have a couple of locally gusty winds with that, but it's going to start to get warmer here. Our temperature gets to 89 degrees in Borrego Springs with sunshine. Oceanside, 77 degrees. Sunny skies in the forecast. Mount Laguna, sunny and 66. On Friday, we're going to start to see things warming up right into the weekend. It's going to be warmer. So on Thursday, On the coastal areas, 76 degrees, mostly sunny and nice for your Thursday. We'll warm it up to 78 and mostly sunny on Friday, 80 degrees on Saturday and mostly sunny. Going to be warming up to 86 on Thursday, inland areas. It'll drop off just a little bit on Friday with a mostly sunny sky, and then our temperatures back up to 86 on Saturday. In the mountain locations, plenty of sunshine on Thursday. We get to 69, staying at 69 on Friday with plenty of sun. We'll warm it up into the low 70s here for Saturday and Sunday. And in the desert areas, 92 with plenty of sunshine on Thursday, 93, sunny and warm on Friday, and then we'll be back up into the mid-90s for Saturday and Sunday. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
It's a fairy tale ending for an Oceanside woman with a passion for costume making. I got a chance to speak with her about how she turned adversity into inspiration for kids across the country.
Now, said her godmother, are you ready to go? Cinderella looked down at her clothes. She hated to seem ungrateful, but she could hardly go to a ball dressed like this.
Once upon a time in Oceanside lived a woman, Mandy, her husband, Ryan, and their 8-year-old daughter, Kaylee. Their tale is one of happiness, love, and family, but it wasn't always an easy one. Mandy was born without an arm.
They think that an amniotic band wrapped around it and just kept it from developing properly. So I've had my whole life to figure out how to adapt and do the things that I want to do.
After spending her childhood bouncing from place to place with her father, who was a pastor, Mandy eventually settled down in Florida. It was there that Mandy met Ryan.
I'm so fortunate that I found my own Prince Charming. He is so sweet and accepting and supportive in real life, too.
The two fell in love. Ryan, a Marine, was living in San Diego. He flew his new love to California, where the couple went to their own ball, the Marine Corps Ball. Eventually, they got married and had a baby girl.
It's our second Valentine's Day. I went out and bought her a sewing machine because in the Marine Corps, my job is parachute rigger or flight equipment technician. We basically sew and repair fabric things that the aircrew use. So I know how to use a sewing machine. I bought her a sewing machine because she is a theater arts major and she had her own little book of costumes she wanted to design for theaters.
It was that hobby that ended up transforming Mandy into a fairy godmother herself. She created some costumes for her daughter and friends, but then she got inspired.
My daughter had been studying Cinderella stories at school, and I realized that there were all these beautiful tales from around the world, but there were still no princesses who looked like me. And so I just had the thought, if this character doesn't exist, I'm going to create her.
She spent 60 hours creating a Cinderella ball gown and another 40 creating one for her Prince Charming. She wasn't sure exactly what she wanted to do with it all, but she knew she wanted to highlight and celebrate her difference.
When I was growing up, I rarely saw anybody who looked like me on television, but I still didn't see amputee women being portrayed as beautiful or strong. And so it took me a really long time to recognize that the things that make us different and unique can actually be really positive traits.
And that was the twist. Mandy decided instead of a glass slipper, her Cinderella would have a glass arm. After telling friends about her plan, she was linked up to a sculptor in Arizona who took one of her prosthetic arms and created a glass-looking one out of clear resin. She posted the pictures on her Facebook, and overnight, the post went viral with thousands of likes.
I've actually been amazed that everybody has been so positive and encouraging. You know, it's kind of scary to put yourself out there on the internet like this, but it's been incredible how everyone has just had positive messages to convey.
She now has received messages and pictures from families across the United States who say she's an inspiration. Her Prince Charming says all of this couldn't be happening to a better person.
I'm very proud of her. Definitely. She definitely deserves it. She's a very sweet person and very compassionate person for people.
Mandy has created a new Facebook page where she's invited her followers to share their own stories about celebrating their differences.
I began to realize, this is something really special, and I at least wanted kids who were like me, who had some kind of physical difference or a lightest difference, to be able to see it, to maybe inspire them that they can be the hero of their own story too.
She says this is just the beginning.
The lightest tap, the gentlest touch, and she was dressed in a gown of gold and silver.
And Mandy says her Cinderella story continues to evolve, and she wants to help put the happy in the ever afters of many more children who might feel a little different. If you want to check out the Facebook page she created, it's called Be the Spark Cosplay. Well, if you're looking for something exciting to do with the kids, more than 100 San Diego attractions are offering free fun for children all month long. It's part of Kids Free San Diego. Some of the perks include free wristbands at Belmont Park, free admission to the California Surf Museum, the Birch Aquarium, and the San Diego Natural History Museum. Kids also get free entrance to SeaWorld and the zoo with a paid adult admission. Kids Free San Diego runs until the end of October. Former President Jimmy Carter is celebrating his 95th birthday today. He's the oldest living former U.S. president, a title previously held by the late George H.W. Bush, who died last year at 94. Carter is a Georgia native, the son of a peanut farmer. He's the 39th president of the United States, known as a champion of human rights. He earned a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for his dedication to international democracy building, conflict resolution, and development programs. Well, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great evening.